I say that Britfield is this generation's book series. And really what we're trying to do is restore family values, elevate literature to the next level of where literature should be, not where it's gone. And at the core of it is really inspire every child with individuality, creativity, critical thinking, communication, collaboration. You ground them in those kind of skills, and you've just launched the next generation of little entrepreneurs and adventurers and everything. And so it's not about cramming everything into a classroom. It's about the expansion of it.
Revolution of common sense.
Revolution of common sense.
A revolution of common sense.
Truth was once common sense, but today, truth is uncommon. Explore biblical truths around faith, business, and politics with Peter Demas. Uncommon Sense in Current Times.
Hey folks, welcome to Uncommon Sense in Current Times. I'm glad to have back Chad Stewart. He is the author and award-winning author of the Britfield series. It's an international adventure saga that blends history, geography, and moral themes to inspire young readers. He's a graduate of Brown University, Boston College. He's worked for over 20 years in writing, film, business. But and you can go back and look at my previous interview with him, because basically his mission is to rekindle imagination, promote literacy, and create stories that elevate truth and friendship and courage, a lot of things that we don't necessarily see anymore. And the series is now expanding into a major film project, so he can bring those same values to the screen. So, Chad, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Great to be back. It's always fun to do multiple interviews because it's always a story or a saga. Last time I was on and then picking up where we left off, and things are always moving fast, and it's fun for the audience, and it's fun for me.
So give me and for those who are listening, in case they didn't hear it before, give me a kind of a Cliff Notes version of the Britfield story, the books. You're at
Sure.
6 books now, is that right?
Well, there'll be 7 in total. We've launched 4. We
Okay.
launched book 4, Britfield and the Eastern Empire. I had to think about it for a minute. And this January, and I'm actually working on 5, which might be fun to talk about a little bit too, because I think it ties into so much of what you said. But yeah, just a quick overview, 2 minutes. Originally from Newport Beach, California, back east, in Wellesley, Massachusetts. Spent 16 years there. Undergraduate British literature, European history, which I think really gave me that foundation. I've always loved history, and people that say history is boring, it's like, you don't know history.
No.
Are you kidding me? History's like amazing. You'll read certain things in history, like, I couldn't write that. People would say there's no way, So that was kind of fun, hugely influential on me. I spent off and on about 2 years in Britain, England, traveled about half the world, mostly Europe, Eastern Europe, as a focal point. Then got into investment banking, worked for 3 Fortune 100 companies. And it was about 12, maybe 13 years now that I, back in Boston, I had the idea for Britfield Lost Crown. And it was for multiple reasons. One is I was really dying to do something fun and creative. And I think we all are. We're all born with creativity, whether we feel we have it or we're not. We're born with it. It makes us unique. It's a talent, gift from God. But we get sort of shifted away from, our talents or that creative world. And so I was trying to do something creative, and I was at this boring insurance seminar in Providence, Rhode Island. That's when I started to drift and doodle. And I doodled a simple circle, 3 lines, a basket, a boy and a girl, and I wrote The Boy and the Balloon. And I thought that would be a really cool story. And I think for many reasons. Number one, takes place in Britain, current time. And a lot of people say, why England? I'm like, why not? But for me, England was a pivoting point for me. And it's also been extremely influential, on the world throughout centuries, and still is in many ways. But it's kind of a neat pivot point, a neat foundation. And I sat down and actually starts up in Yorkshire, Northern England, at this horrible orphanage, Weatherly Orphanage, about Tom, 12-year-old orphan, and his best friend, Sarah, also 12. And Tom's been an orphan, his whole life. He's been at Weatherly for 6 years, and this is the year he's going to escape, but he's not going anywhere without his best friend, Sarah. And somewhere along the lines, they commandeer a hot air balloon, and they're trying to get to London. But they're relentlessly chased by the illustrious Detective Gowerstone, based a little bit on Sherlock Holmes and James Bond, and all my characters and all the places are based on certain things. And I think what's great about this book is it's grounded in reality. It's as close to reality as possible. Yes, it's a fictional novel, but all the places are real, all the locations are real, the history, the art, the architecture, the culture, everything that we blend into these books. I don't know anything like it in literature. And I was a British literature major, European history major. I've studied so many of them, of the award-winning books, ones that have sold 30, 50, 100 million books. I love doing deep dives into biographies like Ian Fleming of the James Bond, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the Sherlock Holmes series, Roald Dahl of James and the Giant Peach. I just got done with a over 1,000-page biography on Mark Twain that practically broke me. It's like, wow, that was a beast. I'm like, it's done. But again, too, because I'm fascinated,
Right.
process, lifestyle, background, all of it. If I was going into manufacturing cars, I'd be studying the best cars out there. If I was manufacturing, going into a French restaurant, I'd be, focusing and researching the best restaurants. And so I do the same thing with literature, but it's grounded in reality. I think what we have in the market today is a saturation of heightened fantasy, demigods, superheroes, zombies, anything and everything except reality, as if reality is so bad. And it's designed for three reasons, and it is a sort of an agenda. Number one, disconnect children from reality. Number two, make them feel less than they are, right? If I just had witch powers or witchcraft, if I just had
Oh,
superpowers,
that's so good. Yeah. Yeah.
right? And I think, and I know every child is amazing. Every child is born as a gift of God. They are born with a purpose and a reason, and it's our job to bring them into that environment. And there's really nothing. We won't get into the whole science of it, but most of the science or prevailing science out there is bunk about genetics and all that other crap. Most kids are 99.9% of kids are born little geniuses. It's just whether the educational system and environment, kids just need opportunities and a safe environment and to expand their mind and flourish. And I think that's really what these books are doing, not just for children, but for adults. I mean, our youngest reader is 7, our oldest reader is 93, and 55% of our reading audience are adults. So book 1's in England, book 2's in France, book 3 is in Italy, book 4 is in Eastern Europe. I'm working on book 5 now, Britfield and Lost Treasure. It starts in Siberia, and then it goes all through Asia. And then book 6 will be in South America. And then book 7 will bring back the whole series to the United States and then end up back in sort of England and then Scotland. So it's kind of that 7-book series. And in every book, the main characters age by 1 year. So you go from 12, 13, 14, 15, and on up. But I really have a huge diverse cast of characters. So it's not really, if you will, a children's book. And it's not just about orphans or an orphanage. Once they're out of the orphan, it's all kinds of adults, So it's Oliver, who's a student at Oxford University. It's Detective Gowerstone in his 40s, who's fascinating and focused. In book 2, we introduce Inspector Fontaine, who works for Interpol. She's talented and young and vibrant. We have Henry. We have Professor Hainsworth. We have just this really cool cast of characters that come along and grow with the book, and it's got nice diversity. But I'll stop there and not dominate the entire
Well,
time.
so a question
Yeah.
I have for you, I guess, is this: you kind of told me kind of your purpose and kind of where it started, but like I think about the Japanese violinist. He was an amazing music teacher. Suzuki was, and he said he wanted to teach every children. He created systems to teach children music because his vision was that if every child learned music, there would be world peace. His vision was actually
Wow.
world peace through music. So when you're writing this, what is your vision? Like, what is it that you would be like, okay, even if it's not even achievable, but like this is like I would love for this to happen if because of the Britfield series.
I say that Britfield is this generation's book series, and really what we're trying to do is restore um, family values and elevate literature to the next level of where literature should be, not where it's gone. And at the core of it is really inspire every child with individuality, creativity, critical thinking, communication, collaboration. You ground them in those kind of skills, and you've just launched the next generation of little entrepreneurs and adventurers and everything. And so it's not about cramming everything into a classroom. It's about the expansion of it. And so it's like divergent thinking. You start with one idea and then you brand out. I mean, there's a great study just to answer your question, I've said it on your show, I think before, but George Land did it. He developed this creativity study for the government, and it was very successful. So he rolled it out to thousands of children in the educational system because he wanted to kind of gauge and see where kids were. And he started with 5-year-olds, and I think it was 98 out of 100 5-year-olds scored off the charts, like just geniuses. And one of the questions is like, what can you do with a paperclip? And see, we're so mind bent. We think we could probably think of 5 or 7 things, maybe 10, maybe 15. But the kids at that age are thinking, well, how big is the paperclip? What's it made of? And it's like, could it be a 10-foot paperclip? And it's just, and they came up with like literally hundreds to these questions and stuff. And what happens is the school system has just narrowed it, almost like a funnel down to this, numbers and things that just don't matter, things you don't use. And so our goal is really to instill and bring creativity back into the classroom, bring creativity back into a child's mind. And I think in doing it with the Britfield series, it's very strategic. So, kids are growing up right now eating as a scenario, they're eating McDonald's, right? And it smells good and it tastes good, but it's destroying their body.
Right.
And the chemicals and everything that's happening with it. And it's like, and can you imagine just being on that kind of diet and there's that one Super Size Me, that documentary, which really says it all. What we're trying to do is we're trying to bring in these like healthy principles, reality, truth, art, architecture, culture, basically going back to that music. And instilling that in a child's mind. And so they'll read the Britfield series, love it. We have kids that have read the 400-page book, book 1, like in 5 hours, one sitting, a weekend. One of our producers that we're now bringing into the movie, which we'll talk to in a minute, she contacted me a couple months ago, and she's a heavy hitter up in Hollywood, 25 years of experience. And she was made aware of Britfield because her son, 12-year-old son, got the series as a gift. And he read all 4 books in less than a week, and that's over 2,000 or almost 2,000 pages.
Wow.
And he's now rereading the series. And it's because, if you do something correct, if you do something right, it's like that idea, if you build it, they'll come. Often it's like, they don't know you're there. But if you do something good, quality will find an audience. Value will find an audience. Truth will find an audience. Truth will never come back, right? Like a double-edged sword, it goes deep to the marrow, but it never comes back twofold. And so we're planting truth, we're planting enlightenment, we're planting creativity into the child's mind. And they go back and they read this other stuff, and now it just seems a bit silly, if that makes sense. And I'm seeing the national and global impact of the Britfield series in that sense. It's like they don't like the Harry Potter anymore because it's silly. Tom didn't have a wand and Sarah didn't have a magic cloak, and they had to deal with real life problems and they had to overcome these problems. And they did it by courage and by hope and by communication and critical thinking and effort. And, when they failed, they picked their feet up and they continued on. And it's like these stories, I can step outside it as a writer because I have to. And I'm the devil's advocate. I'm my worst critic. And I'm always questioning my writing and what I'm doing, and does this make sense, and what does this mean? But it's a very, very massive and impactful series, and I think it's a paradigm shift in literature. So that's a long answer to your question, but to bring creativity back in the hearts, minds, and souls of children.
So if right now, you're at the pre-production stage of the first movie. So by moving it to movies and moving it to that, is that in and of itself kind of taking away from literature, or do you think that it kind of
No.
goes hand in hand with exposing, or exposing people to literature that's out there?
Let me do this. Put one of your favorite movies growing up in your mind and think of the impact that had on you. I'll say 2. One was Star Wars, the first original, 1977.
Yep.
Blew my mind to this day. I still feel it, put it that
Right.
way. And The Sound of Music. And I'm not a musical person.
I hate
But
musical too, but that's the only one I watch. I
yeah,
love
and
The
that
Sound of
story
Music.
was so heartwarming, so beautiful, so pristine. I'm in love with Austria now. I'm in love with Salzburg. I've been there twice. I visited all the locations where they filmed it. You could go there today. It looks exactly the same. Nothing's changed. It's powerful. But I give you those 2 images, and it's just like that's what a movie can do. A proper movie. Most of the movies out there are less than average, and bunk and pushing agendas and flash over substance and no real story. Can you imagine Britfield and Lost Crown as a movie? I have for over 10 years. I
Right.
grew up in the theater and film business slightly, and then was in script writing for decades before I got into novel writing. And so, unbeknownst to me, subconsciously, I learned the three-act structure. I learned how to write a compelling story and move that narrative, um, scene by scene, action by action, not lagging, not too much description. I think most of the books out there, kind of an interesting beginning, sometimes too long, get into the story, you're getting into the story, and then they kind of go off on a deviant, or they've got all this description and paragraphs, and it's like doesn't have anything to do with the story, and they're trying to be clever and creative with their poetic, and it's like that's not storytelling. Let the reader fill in some of that stuff. I could describe a castle to you, but I don't need to spend a page doing it. You've seen
Right.
castles. I'll frame it, 6 stories high with gray stone and slate turrets with ivy crawling up, and a drawbridge. You know what I mean? Got it. You know what I mean? I don't need to go on and on and on, the windows and the crystal and the sun, and they do that, and it's like what it does is it takes away a little bit of that energy. I call it barbed wire because you get tangled up in it, or a speed bump. You're moving along with the story, and then all of a sudden, boink, and
Right.
we'll be reading these novels, and we're like, oh my gosh, and we'll just leapfrog, get on
Yeah.
with the
No.
story, get on with the story. It's like I got it, and so I'm very aware of you, the reader, and your time, and I try to write the most fun, exciting, enriching story that while you read it, you're actually going to learn. You're going to learn more about England. You're going to learn a little bit about London and Hyde Park and Bond Street and a little bit of British literature and European history. And I mean, it's all in there, but it's not a tour guide and it's not a history book, and it's a very delicate balance. But I'm trying to re-educate, the next generation of children and even adults with a little bit of history and culture.
There were two kind of books that I remember reading that made me fall in love with the Civil War.
Mm,
One was the North and South,
yeah, remember that.
and the other one was Blue and Gray. Both were fictional that obviously overlapped with historical events,
Sure.
and I used to growing up, I used to love that pieces of it. But one of the things I know that you're trying to do at Britfield, it goes beyond something like that, is you're trying to talk about the kind of uh, morality. You're trying to kind of talk about what's right and wrong, and
Yes.
put in moral values. But then when I hear you say, like when you look at things like Harry Potter or science fiction and that type of stuff, and again, I think you made a great point of if only I had a wand, if only I had that. But can you not also get it from that? And then I add Lion, Witch, and Wardrobe, and then I
Sure.
really complicate it in my head. So I'm gonna throw all that at you and say, "Okay, reconcile all that for me."
No, absolutely. And I read a great biography of Grant, Ulysses Grant, that was out years ago, if you remember that. It's like 900-page, which is fascinating. And Civil War has been fascinating to me. Revolution more so, but yeah, I mean, and I'm a big Lewis fan too. And what's so interesting about Lewis, and you and your audience probably know this, but when he created Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, the series, he wasn't doing it for children. He was doing it for adults. He really wanted to bring
Actually, I
back
didn't know that.
yeah, he wanted to bring back the wonderment of childhood to adults. Isn't that
Hmm,
cool?
that is neat.
And write a kind of book that's sophisticated and but fun, and that you could sit there and pick it up and get back into that world. I mean, why stop reading? 55% of young adult audience are adults anyway, which is interesting. Number one, a lot of them are very well crafted, but they're just fun. You know what I mean? We don't need another spy thriller with someone getting shot in the arm and falling off this, and going into the bedroom with the harlot, or I mean, all the stuff that's just out there. It's like
Right.
we get it day in and day out, like the realism of life. We get it. We want a little escapism, and so he created that. And yet he does bring in that fantasy world, and so I get it. You know what I mean? I can't be anti fantasy, but like I talk about Star Wars. That's fiction, or is it? But and that's for another conversation, right? Um, but but, and then, James the Giant Peach, that was one of my favorite books growing up,
Oh,
and
yeah.
and it just impacted me, and it's like, if you look behind me, you
Oh,
see
I
the
see it now.
balloon,
Yeah, yeah.
right? And you see this orange flying thing, it's like, and I don't know, I didn't when I was writing this story, I wasn't thinking that, but subconsciously, maybe I was. There's James and the
Right.
Giant Peach, and it's so all these books have influenced me, and Dickens comes closest, I think, as far as impact and grounded in reality and stuff. So, I'm not to say that it's necessarily a bad thing. I think it's gone warped. I think witchcraft is not a good thing. There are no good witches and bad witches. All witchcraft is bad, and And there's so much behind that, and you probably have covered it on your show and stuff. And those that are pushing and promoting it, it's the fastest growing religion in the world now because of the Harry Potter series. That's a $34 billion franchise with over $1 billion spent in marketing it. If you look at a movie as a marketing campaign, which it is, so over $1 to $2 billion to peddle black magic, witchcraft, and the dark arts. And maybe you don't believe in it, but the people that are behind it, they do, and they live by it. And it's an entire system that exists today. Much like the military, it's that complex, all the way up to the generals, all the way down to the whatever you want to call it. So certain things like that are, you need to stay away from because it's not clean and it's not good. I mean, vampires and things like that. But, I get some of the superheroes and that kind of stuff. It's fun. So I guess you just have to gauge it. But to me, it's the type of fiction I'm writing right now, in my opinion, it's twofold. One, it's the hardest fiction. I could write an adult book, if you will, relatively easy, you know what I mean? Because I'm adult and I can be in that world. But to be delicate and balance it with the age of my main characters from 12 to 13 to 14, and yet bring in the 20-something-year-olds and the 30-year-old and the 40-year-old and have some romance and all that stuff beautifully blended and not use any heightened fantasy is extremely difficult because you do write yourself into corners. It's like, if you're writing Harry Potter, what corner do you write yourself into? It's like, what was that spell? Oh yeah. Or hold on, let me pull this thing out. Or do you have those magic beans? Or take that cloak. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, it's just a disconnect from reality. If I could suspend the audience, and it's tough, it's tough competition out there, right? These are billion-dollar corporations that are hammering this stuff that have been around for 50, 100 plus years. I'm thinking Scholastic is a $2 billion business. They are the ones that are behind the Harry Potter series. And to not only compete about that, but to actually break it and to have kids like my book better and not use that. And what I would call compromise my book with that stuff is very, very difficult to keep them engaged. Because, let's be honest, it is interesting. It is exciting. I get that. I do.
Yeah.
Like the Wizard of Oz is like, wow, some of the stuff I grew up with, it was like, it's fun. I get it. Like I grew up with Bewitched, you know what I mean? Like as a series. And it's like, but it's very subtle, you know what I mean? But it was kind of cool. I do get that, you know what I mean? And that disconnect, but to hold and suspend your audience and have kids that sit down and read this in a weekend, 400 pages. And it's not because it's bold print or because I use simple words. I write very sophisticated. I use a lot of vocabulary and a lot of complex sentence structure, but you wouldn't know it because it's the way that I write it. And because there's no fat in my writing, if that makes sense. The words that I use, the way that I start every sentence, my final edits, getting rid of any extra fat, if you will. And so it's just pure flow. It's like reading a great movie script, which, in a movie script world, one page is a minute. And in a movie script, you want to see a lot of white. Not that there's a lot of white in my book, but you never have more than 2 or 3 lines of description for a paragraph. You start on the action, you end on the action. You don't have a knock at the door, come in, guy walks over, and then you have your discussion. That's all wasted time. I don't waste that time either. I start on the action, I end on the action. I start on the action, I move it. And I don't fill in every single piece. I let you think for yourself, I frame it and let you fill it in. So
I listened one time to a seminar, and this would have been, golly, probably 40 years ago. It was Dr. Wade Davis. He was a Harvard scientist, and he went to Haiti, and he was looking at voodoo and the religion of voodoo and science and magic, and he wrote a book called The Serpent and the Rainbow, and they made a movie out of it that was absolutely terrible. I think it was Wes Craven, Nightmare on Elm Street guy that made it all like really science fiction type thing on it. But one of the things that he said, I remember this really clearly. It was it was a fascinating lecture. But one of the things he said was that he could have taken the book, gone to Oklahoma, and threw it to Hollywood, and that's about as close as Hollywood took his book and made it real. Like he's like, Oklahoma is about as close as they got to it. Do you have a fear with that? Because I know you're talking about this action, but if everything is just action like this, and eventually, this movie would be 6 hours long,
Yeah.
so like you got to cut stuff, you got to create a lot of that
script
from there.
This is
Okay.
an 8-strap finished script. Your audience gets to
So
see.
you obviously had to leave stuff out. You obviously have a fear that Hollywood will water it down.
We're controlling the creative aspect of this.
Okay,
We have complete creative control to answer that. And that's a great question. And it's like the biggest fear is that because we're building a wonderful repertoire, nationally and globally for the Britfield series. And believe it or not, we're still in the soft release stage. Next year, January is when we go global with this book. So if you're wondering why you haven't seen it out there, you haven't heard about it, you will. You will. Things of quality take time. We've been behind the scenes for 7 years building this media enterprise, if you will, this dynasty, and it just takes time. But the greatest question is like, will it be as good as the book? And I honestly think it'll be better than the book. And I know that sounds crazy, but I can describe, Weatherly Orphanage as you're coming in, there's the reading audience and the moors and the sky. But within 1 second of that opening image, you see it all. Can you imagine the scenes when Tom and Sarah are in the hot air balloon flying over England? I could never in a million years do that justice unless I had 50 pages, to
Right,
write
yeah.
the pastel colors that are rolling over the green hills as the grass is bending with the wind and blah, blah. You know what I mean? Like one shot of them, what they see will be like The Sound of Music, right? I'm going to keep coming back to that because that movie was so visual. You were in Salzburg, you know what I mean? And that beautiful estate and that lake on, back in the back of the house. And as a quick footnote, the front of the house is one building and the back of the house is a separate one 10 miles away or 5 miles away. They're two separate. But and then just the rolling hills and the all of that is so beautiful. I think another one of my favorite movies was the adaptation done with Winona Ryder of Little Women. That's one of my favorite movies. It was so well done. The cinematography was stunning and gorgeous. How they brought us into that sort of Victorian era, Concord, Massachusetts, and the different seasons and the fall and the snow and the rain in Boston and the characters and what they wore. It's just brilliant. I mean, the book could never do that. No offense. And it was a great book, but I'm just using that as an example that
Right.
I've gone over the script multiple times. We've hired a professional script writer, but I've gone over like the last 4 or 5 edits to clean it up, tighten it. And I'll be honest, like I not only get excited, I get very emotional in certain scenes because I can see it. And it's just the one thing that this book and this movie have is heart. It just has heart. And I kind of think it's a type of film that will literally blow people's mind. Like they do not know what to expect. They're excited, and those that have read the story and will have a ton of hype. We'll have an 18-month worldwide marketing campaign and tour before this thing comes out, which will be starting next year. But I think it's going to blow their mind. They're going to sit there for 2 hours, 2 hours and 10 minutes. It'll be over, and I think people will get up and start applauding, but will be shocked for the first minute that it's over because they can't believe it's like a tonic. It's fed their soul. That's what I think the movie will be like. When's the last time you saw a movie that was so good it just fed your soul, right? It just and you
Right.
thought about it weeks on, and you couldn't wait to see it again. You couldn't wait to tell people. That's what I think the movie will do.
So we're kind of we are at the end of time, but
Sure.
so you're at pre-production. When do you expect the filming to start and the marketing and all that other stuff to start? And then secondly is how do people get the books now?
Sure.
Like how can they go ahead and get it? It's Christmas time is right around the corner.
Sure.
These are great gifts for people of all ages, but as well. But I can easily see this under a lot of Christmas trees. So what? Yeah. How do we find out about it, and how do we prepare
Sure.
ourselves for the movie?
Yeah, we're hoping to be filming in England in either summer or fall of next year, about this time. If all goes well, things are starting to expedite. We do want to film in England, pretty much all of it. And so, not to sound obvious, but most movies aren't done that way. It's like it's shot on a lot, up in Hollywood, or it's like there's a series right now that's very popular in the South, and it's like I think it's in New Orleans or something, and it's like they're filming it in Ireland. So because of tax credit. So, but I really want to bring it all in. We're going to use British actors, a British film team, crew. We're going to be there. That's part of the heart of this movie. Just like book 2 will be shot in France because you need to, you know what I mean? And it's a tribute to the country. It's a tribute to the people. And that's what these books are. But I think, the best place to get it right now would be our website, Britfield.com. I'm still signing books. I will not be doing that much longer. I've said that in the past, but that's coming to a near end. Not that I don't enjoy doing it. I don't have time anymore. In
Right.
fact, you're probably one of the last interviews I'll be doing for quite a while. I'm too busy now. Always honored to do the interviews, so I don't mean it that way. I just
No,
simply
no,
don't.
no, I get it.
Yeah,
No,
I just
I get it 100%.
yeah, I
There are
can't.
times
I
I'm
don't have
too
the
busy
time.
to
And
feel like I can even do the interviews, so I
yeah,
understand.
and then like this whole week, like I've been signing books. I get up in the morning like at 5 o'clock, and I'm signing books. And I just shipped off a four book package to Belgium. How cool is that?
That's
It's like,
cool.
and we ship all over the United States. We ship abroad too. And someone was asking me about shipping to China. I'm like, oh, I don't know. I wouldn't want to risk that. But anyway. It's really cool so I'll sign all the books. You can get, just book one, or you can get the 4 book special, which is great. And I mean, they're wonderful gifts for the holiday. They're great gifts for parents, really, for grandparents. I've had so many older people, 60s, 70s, that have just, loved the book, and they'll send me an email or a letter, like a woman from Canada. And she's like, reminds me a lot of the James Bond series, but with a bigger cast and a greater purpose. And I thought, boy, you really got that, but they get it, and thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for lifting my spirits and encouraging me. And it's just like there's nothing bad in it. You know what I mean? You're always kind of waiting at like the great movie that you're watching, and it's like, here comes that scene, or the
Right, right.
compromising. We just don't have it. So I think that's great. Amazon's good. We're finalizing details with Barnes and Noble. That's another site, of course. Ingram. So most bookstores should be able to get it if it's not in there yet. So it will be.
Wonderful. Well, Chad, thank you so much. I appreciate you again being on the show. Appreciate
Sure.
talking about this. It's always your passion, not just for your books, but your passion for what you're doing for the greater peace that your books represent and do is very obvious. And I thank you for that. I know you're about to be in a whirlwind with between pre-production and rolling that out while working on book 5. So I pray that you get
Oh, please.
you get to utilize your time and
Amen.
I pray for a lot of success in this, and I hope it really takes off.
Thank you. Yeah, and I fight for my time to write. I had an hour this morning, and I'm like, an hour's better than nothing. And then boom,
Yeah,
I was in there, page or two, page and a half, editing or whatever I was doing. I'm just like eking it along. But book 5 is going to be amazing, so I'm excited about that.
well, thank you again. I appreciate it, and I look forward to having you on the show when you can redo interviews again. So
Sure.
I appreciate
Absolutely.
it. Thank you so
No,
much.
God bless. Thank you.
Bless you.